are such an asshole.
But I thought you weren't working. I'm playing catch up, guys. I'm not taking any new ones. It's interesting question. That right. Yeah, what? I see you. Yes, sweetheart. Go lie down. Go lie down. Come on. Go. Lie down. Lie down. See how that one doesn't bark? Hey, old Capmeister, looking for a video response. I read your book, Reconnaissance Man, and was wondering if you could expound on one area of the country. Although in the book, you pretty much write off this area of the country, and doing my own research, it keeps coming up as the best area for me overall as a place to move to. This would be the area at the intersection of Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. Since I believe you lived in this area almost your whole life. Well, I haven't. I lived in Milwaukee. I lived in Minneapolis. A little bit in Chicago, and Casper, Wyoming, and Buffalo, Wyoming. But that Mississippi River Valley is really what you're looking at because that's where they all converge. I've been through the area, but I never lived there. Since I believe you've lived in this area most of your whole life, I think you could provide some insight here. I guess I'm trying to find out what's wrong with places like La Crosse, nothing. Rochester, it's left is Eau Claire, it's in the middle of nowhere. Faribault, as Hudson, Osceola, or Northfield. You don't want to go to Northfield. You don't want to go to Northfield. Even parts of eastern Iowa looks nice, like Iowa City or Cedar Rapids. I know from being a longtime listener to stay away from the Minneapolis tits and the Edinas and the Waizezes of the world. But what's wrong with these cities far outside the suburbs? If you had to pick some parts of these three states to move to, what are some of the cities you would recommend? Thanks, and please never retire. Many of us depend on you for our sanity. Well, let me before I pull up the map, let me just kind of give you the general topography or geography of it. All right. Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and Illinois, because Illinois is up there too, are basically plain states. They're flat. Except when you get to the Mississippi River Valley, because the river's been there for Lord knows how many millions of years, and all the water that goes up on the plains drains down into the Mississippi River Valley, into the Mississippi River. And, well, if you take a look at Lake Pepin, that valley can be as wide as almost 10 miles wide. And in that valley, so just imagine sometimes it's much more narrow, like no more than 3 miles across. But imagine this valley where all the water is flowing down, creating crevasses and cliffs and little streams and waterfalls even. It's all beautiful. And the furthest south I've gone is Dubuque. And I cut over into Galena, Illinois. Atham, look it up. So maybe that continues on down into Missouri, Arkansas. I don't know. But on one of my longer motorcycle rides, I rode out and did Dragon's Tail in Tennessee, went into the Carolinas, went north into Washington, D.C., over West Virginia, through the Smoky Mountains again. And the prettiest part of that ride was the Mississippi River Valley. That is the prettiest part of the United States that is not west. And what's happened, of course, because of the economy and shipping back, there's like a river culture that has formed regardless of what state you're in. And they're all nestled within the river. There's some amazing views of the river. And they're not big towns. And so in terms of geography, I love it. But if you go much more than 2-3 miles to either the east or west of the Mississippi, you go up big hills, and then you get to the plains, and it's just farmland or plains. It's just boring. There's nothing there. So you want to stay in the valley. The other thing you have to consider is like, well, you just randomly throw all these, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. Well, they're distinct different states with distinct different state governments, and you get to live by those laws. I am not that familiar with Iowa in terms of its state politics. But between Minnesota and Wisconsin, you absolutely want to be in Wisconsin. Iowa might even have better politics than Wisconsin, but Minnesota it's not dictatorial or tyrannical. It's a nanny state. It's a bunch of vaginas, the men included, who nanny you and you shouldn't smoke. Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't. Oh, gay sex, fine, go do that. Little kids, okay. Ooh, you can't use an SUV. That's bad. And just and not even necessarily socio-political, but just the dumbest business regulations. Like I was talking to a distiller, and they can only sell their whiskey in small little bottles. So you can't get the liter bottle. Why not? The state won't let it. Well, why the hell not? And they're just shaking their heads. It's like, just go to Wisconsin. And that's what happened. One of the towns you listed was called Hudson, Wisconsin. And that's a fun town. And it became a lot more fun when Minnesota cracked down and says, oh, no, going out. Oh, that's bad there, don't you know? You could riot and burn down our buildings, yeah? You can do that because we feel bad as guilty white people that even though we just moved over here in the 1890s, you go burn down the buildings. Yeah, I'm terribly sorry. Would you like to fuck my daughter, Ilsa? So that's Minnesota. Wisconsin, they brought a lawsuit to the Supreme Court and they neutered, Evers? Says, no, you can't do that. And so I even drove to Hudson to go work out at the gym there because it was open. And I think Hudson, there's always traffic jam because it's a river town. It's a pretty cool town. There's a ton of bars and restaurants and all that. Dude, they had windfall profit because everybody it's also very close to the metro area of the Twin Cities. Everyone, St. Paul and over, was going over to Hudson. And it's just a funner, more free state. So if I had to choose between Wisconsin and Minnesota, I choose Wisconsin. Iowa, I presume, is more conservative, though I've seen them vote Democrat before. I really don't know. You'd have to look up their politics, but I would look and see what the tax rates are. Between Wisconsin and Iowa, what are the tax rates in Iowa? That's what I would do. So there's that. But as long as you stay out of Minnesota and you follow that Mississippi River Valley down, yeah, it's beautiful. If I had to live in one of those three states, I absolutely would live there. So now let me pull up a map. Here's here for you. I'm going to start in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Prairie du Chien, WI. Okay, and if you want to follow along, get the Google Maps, and you kind of want to have it be topographical terrain. I think, yeah, it doesn't default to that. Where do I want? I don't want to. Satellite won't do it either. Let me zoom out a little bit more. Okay. Now, Prairie du Chien is at the intersection where the Wisconsin River flows into the Mississippi River. And it's still beautiful all the way down to Dubuque. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. But if you could see where Highway 90, 94, it's Highway 90. So La Crosse, and then it goes to Sparta, then it goes to Towman, it goes to Mauston, then Wisconsin Dells, and then Evelyn to Madison does this arc down. Say, why does it do that, Aaron? Well, because to the south and west of Highway 90, it's all gorgeous hills and valleys and little mountains. I wouldn't call them mountains, but lots of hills and valleys and nooks and crevasses. So if you get a topographical map, you can see it. That is a beautiful area. That is the prettiest part of Wisconsin to live in. And whereas, yeah, ideally you'd like to live maybe on the Mississippi River, but that Prairie du Chien, Viroqua, that's not on the river though, Genoa, DeSoto, Ferryville, up into La Crosse, and even all the way from La Crosse, all the way up, I would say even to Hudson itself. If you keep, where is it? Bluff Siding, Fountain City. Alma is just a quaint little town. I remember going there. Nelson's a fun little town. Fountain City is pretty. La Crosse, if you want something larger, you could go there. Stockholm, that's puny, but Bay City's fun. Hager City really is just a bar. And then you get to Prescott. Then the road leaves the river. That entire strip from Prescott, Wisconsin, all the way down to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, plenty of it. Now, being a little bit more savvy, what I would do is I would live a little bit further south so you get warmer weather. And that's not a little bit further south. That's significantly further south. But I remember driving on the Iowa side on a motorcycle ride. I went to Galena. By the way, stop at Galena, Illinois. Don't live there because it's Illinois. You got all the fuckwits and parasites in Chicago raping you for your money. But yeah, the Iowa side was also very pretty. And there was a town when we cut over. Was it McGregor? Is that 18? Yeah, it is 18. Or was it 14? Did I go through? Did that? Yeah, we did go through it. Yeah. Marquette, McGregor, Iowa was a real nice Mark Twain, Mississippi town. I really like that area, but it's going to be hard. Now, I will tell you this. You got the Mississippi. On the west side into Iowa or Minnesota, which you're not going to move, but on what you might be tough. Oh, Iowa, but it goes up and plains real quick. That part for Prairie du Chien, north of the Wisconsin River, south of Highway 90, that entire area is all nestled. Soldiers Grove, Gay Mills, Viroqua, Lafarge, Ontario, Cashion, Westby. What was the town I stopped in? Coon Valley. That was wonderful. There's just a score of little wonderful towns. I would go and explore in that area. So if you wanted some vistas, you want to see the Mississippi River, there's some towns all the way is at 35. Yes, Highway 35, 26 is on the west side. Just some beautiful views. But if you could do without the view of the river, I would go into that basically southwest corner of Wisconsin and kind of go and explore around in that area. If you got a motorcycle, some amazing riding, and that's you're not going to find a prettier part of the United States east side of the Mississippi. That it beats the Smoky Mountains, it beats the Adirondacks, it beats West Virginia, it beats the Carolinas, and obviously everything else beats New England because let's just face it, that part of the country sucks. That's where I would live. But beyond that, you don't want to leave. You don't want to go too far from the river. If you do want to go too far from the river, you have to be in the southern part of Wisconsin. And I don't know. And it's not like there aren't bridges. Like you're like, oh, I want to be in Wisconsin, and like you get a great deal on a house in Iowa across the river. Like, oh nope, it's Iowa. Well, it's across the river. It's like literally a 2-minute drive across the bridge to get to Wisconsin. If you want to be a little bit more practical, I would say probably live within a 20-minute drive of Dubuque or La Crosse because they're sizable. They got Walmarts. But the towns like Rochester, Northfield, no, they're on the plain, and it's Minnesota, and it sucks. So there we go. Any super chats today? Yeah, he's right. Stay out of Minneapolis no matter what you do. Just stay out of Minnesota. There's no reason to come to Minnesota. None. Atham for $2. Aaron Clary, the Tosher of the Manister? What's the Tosher? What's a Tosher? What words are you and Chad coming up with? DJ Aftershocks, $2. Control your hands, Cappy. Don't make me call Peter. Yeah, I scratched the dog behind its ears. Yeah. That dog behaves. Scott Ludke for $2. Thanks, Scott. All right, that's it. Questions, answers, assholeconsulting.com. I'll see you guys later. Toodles.